library. So what is a block library? The block library basically contains different, blocks. Okay? Each blocks will have different, fields, which are associated to the particular block libraries. Okay? Based on the context of the block, they will have different fields. And then the first question which normally people ask me is, Harish, do we have an option to create new blocks in the library? Okay? So we get to see all these options, but is there, apart from this, is there any other way where we can able to add a new block? No, we cannot. The response is like, we cannot able to add any new blocks. These are Oracle seeded values, and we cannot able to make any changes to it. Hmm. Is that this is one thing. This is the first one. And next is like, if you wanted to add any block, we can just simply drag and drop. So what I'll do is let me just quickly delete all the ones which is added so that I can show it to you in flash. You can just delete like this, or you can also just drag and drop the contact information block is mandate. Okay? So before we look into this, if you remember in the PPT, we saw like, five different sections, right? We saw personal, these are the five different sections which we saw. And I said like, these sections are standard and we cannot able to modify. Okay? So you will see the same five sections here. Okay? Personal information, job application, experience more about your summary. Okay? And we cannot able to, we don't have a functionality to add new sections or remove the sections. Let's say, for example, the customer says, Harish, we don't want to use, more about you. We will just put all the blocks in the other three sections. We don't want to use this section. Then what will happen? If there are any sections which does not have a block in it, then this section will not be displayed to your, external job applicants. This is Oracle standard. It will not be displayed to your external job applications. So if you wanted to rename this section, the headings, you can able to do that by clicking on the pencil icon, and then you can able to change it. From personal info, I'll just change it to personal information. And you can just fine tune it accordingly, including the summary section, you can rename it. And the summary section will always be the last section, and then the personal information will always be the first section, and you cannot swap the sections. If you wanted to change the order, then you can just use the renaming to change the the naming accordingly. And there are certain mandate properties we have here. Okay? The first thing is like the profile import. The profile import will should always be the first block in the first section. If you try to change this profile import to some other section, the system throws an error stating that the import must be the first block in the first section. Okay? Even you cannot change it here also. It throws an error. And then the contact informations are mandate blocks. So you can just change this block to some other section. But if you try to remove this block, system throws an error. And if you ask me, Harish, is this the this contact information is the same behavior in all the applications? I don't think it is the same behavior in all the instances. But this particular instances, this is this is a behavior. Might be this could be because of certain customizations which would have been created in the design studio. Now we saw like what are the different sections and what are the mandates. So we'll see how to add a block from the library to our different sections. Let's say, for example, if we take address, I can just simply drag and drop. I can just simply drag and drop, it will be added. Or we also have other options like, I can just click on this inverted triangle button here, and then I can just click on add to, and then I can just choose the section here. And then here, if you see, when I click on job application, questions, right? I cannot able to, see like, which job application questions I wanted to add to this particular one, because these are basically, added, these questions would be automatically picked based on what is added in the requisition. Okay? But we can able to change the block properties. Like, for example, the block headline, it is application questions. If you wanted to change it, you can able to change it. For example, I can able to change something like this. So when I change the heading name, right, you see in the block name, it is still showing as job application questions. But when you click on it, it will show you the, the headline, because these are the ones which is visible to the external candidates. But from for us, the job application question is the block name. And then you can just keep adding multiple blocks. For example, we have this job application questions, right? And now when I try to add, try to add the job application flow question again, you cannot able to see that, because certain information, once you used it, you will not find it in the block library. Okay, that means you can use it only once. Okay. So next we have, like, this important block, which is the timeline. So what is a timeline block? If I just add the block here, and if I just go to the job application, you see this work and the education history. This is what we call it as timeline block. For example, let me just add import a resume here. So once you import your resume, the resume parsing will add all your info, education and the employment information. This is called the timeline block. So this is the one. Okay? And apart from this, you also have a separate block for education. You can just add the block here, and then you will see experience. You can just add the blocks here. Okay. You can, this will not display the timeline box, but you have to manually enter all, I mean, the look and feel would be completely different. But when you add certain blocks, right, you see an, error message here. What does it means? It means that, there are certain block properties which was not defined. If you just hover the mouse on top of it, you will see certain block properties are not defined. So once you click on the block, you will have to choose the block properties. For example, when it comes to education, you will see some sections here. You can just choose here. Where is this sections coming from? These sections are coming from the talent profiles. So I'll just click on save. And then when it comes to experience, same thing, we have to choose some section. I'll just click on save. So once I enter all this information, and then when I try to save and activate, the system throws an error. Why the system is throwing an error? The system is throwing an error stating that, you can have either the timeline block or the education and the experience block. We cannot able to have both. Okay? Because the timeline block is basically, this is the place where we are capturing the education and experience, right? So we don't need and separate blocks to capture your education and experience. So these are some basic validations which the system does, by default. Okay? Next, we have, like, as part of your, job application flow, we wanted to add the supporting documents. What are the supporting documents we have? We have resume, cover letter, and social media links. So if I just go back here, yeah. So this is the block which we are talking about. We can add resume, cover letter, and then this links is for adding our social media links. We can just keep adding multiple links. Okay? So once you add 3 links, then the add link button gets disabled. So if you wanted to make resume mandate, cover letter mandate, you can just select this checkbox so that this blocks are, like, this fields are mandate within this particular block. Okay? And then the headlines and the instructions can be modified accordingly. And one trick which tip which we wanted to do is, like, let's say here, as part of the supporting documents, right? And if we or maybe we let me take another example. So once you define the block properties, the error message goes off. And then we have something called as miscellaneous documents. What is this miscellaneous documents? These documents are, like, if you wanted to capture some additional documents from the candidate, then we use this miscellaneous documents. And you can make this section to be required. So here I say, like, I'll mention, please upload the below documents. Education latest Employment. These slips. So I'm just giving and a small example. Okay. So once I enter this informations, okay, how this informations the instructions would display in the application here. Let me just quickly show you how this would look like in the system. Instead of this, you will see we expect to see something like this, right? But it will not be like this. You will see something like this in the application. Though, like, you have put in the separate lines, the system will, treat them as, all the content in a single line. And then, the system will display the data like this. So if you ask me, Harish, then how do we display it in the next lines? Then the response is very simple. These are basically an HTML box system. So what we do is we'll just use the HTML code, which is BR, break liner. So this will, make sure like, each and every content is displayed in a separate line. So these are like, small tips which we normally use as part of our applications. So next, we have a lot of, other sections here. We have languages, license and certifications, work preferences, and then languages, assessments, miscellaneous, disability, diversity, veteran, all those details you have. And then you have this sensitive personal information. What are the fields which is there in sensitive personal information? The national identifier and then the date of birth. So let's say the customer says, sir, if we wanted to capture only, the date of birth, not the national identifier, you can just uncheck. But if you wanted to display both, you can just select this checkbox. And if you want the candidates to mandatorily fill this information, then you select this checkbox. So that without this information, the candidate cannot able to proceed. And then similarly, all the blocks, right, wherever it is coming from talent profiles, you need to select and section. You have to keep adding the section. And then once you add a section, and then once you click on save, this particular block property error message will go up. So let's say we take languages. Languages, right? So when a candidate is adding a language, these are the informations which the candidate has to enter. They will choose a language here, and then they will choose what is the reading, writing and speaking. And you will have all these questions. And then as part of this, like, the customer says, Harish, we wanted to make some changes to it. Okay. So we don't want to ask them like, if it is a native language or not. And then we don't want them to, display able to translate, able to, teach and all. We don't want to ask this question to the candidate. These are like, not relevant for us. Then what we do is we will have to modify the profile types. So how do we modify it? Where do we need to go? We need to go to the profile types, and the navigation would be we'll go to my client group, and then under my client group, you will see an option here called profiles. Once you go to profiles, you will see talent profiles. In 1 minute, so someone has made some changes here. Everything is now in responsive. So Redwood pages, so that is something which is creating little confusions. Okay. So we have, once you go to this profile types, you will see person here. So here you can just click on the actions and then you will see different contents here. Okay? So now what we are trying to do, we are trying to update the languages, right? So in the profile types, you will just see for languages. Yeah. So you see this languages here, right? We can just click on the edit icon, and then if I just go inside this, you will see all these values here. Okay. So for example, you see this able to translate, able to teach, right? If you wanted to change this, you just display, we will just click on hide. Okay. So now what happens is once you hide this, you will not able to see those details here. So this is how you can able to do that. Let's say, for example, if there are a lot of changes, okay, a lot of changes are there, and then or if customer says like Harish, for India we don't need this question, but for US we need this questions. In such case, what we'll do, we can just create multiple contents here. So what I can do is I'll just create a new content section. So once I click on content section, we have to choose which temp for which we wanted to create it. Let's say if I choose language, and then the section name, I'll give like, languages. Then I'll keep it as active. And then here I will just, hide all those things, native, able to translate. All these values are basically, these are hidden. Okay. Once I make all the changes here, the most important thing which we have to do is we have to add the subscribers. So what do we mean by subscribers? If you remember when we talked about the questions, when we are creating the pre-screening questions, right? Once we go to the questions task, you will click on the subscribers and then you will choose, the recruiting, right? Similarly, in the subscribers, you have to choose the recruiting. So basically, this talent profile is used across all this, profile and all these modules. Okay. So you have to choose like, for which module you wanted to use it. You will just click on add subscribers. And then let's say, for example, I will use it for talents. So ideally what we do is whenever we are adding recruiting, right, whenever we are creating something for recruiting, we'll also make sure, we also include the talent profile. The reason why we include talent profile is because today that it is just a candidate profile. Tomorrow, once, the candidate becomes an employee, then this data has to be part of the talent profiles. Hence, we get to, add both. So once you're done, click on add button. So now we'll just click on update here. Once you click on update, now it has been updated. So what we'll do is we'll just leave it here and then I'll just click on save it as draft. and I'll just go back to the previous page. And now, what I'll just see, since this is the demo instance, we have to do all those things. If you once you start working on your real-time instance, all you have to do is just you can just hit on the refresh page, and then you can start using it. Okay, I'll just quickly go back. I'll just search for the one which we created. And now I'll just resume editing. So now when I go to the language block, and when I search it, I get to see these two options. So that's the purpose of this profiles here. Okay. So where all the profiles can be updated? If I just go back to the person, you will see the profiles for license and certifications, degree, educations, honors, languages, and then work requirements and work history. All those pages, all the sections you can able to do that. So this is how you can able to create your own profile types. And then apart from that, you have diversity, veteran status, and disability, right? The diversity and veteran, by default, these two blocks, even if you add a block here, right? So even if I add these three blocks here, the diversity and the veteran would be displayed only if the requisitions are created for United States. If the work location is for United States, then these two blocks would be displayed, the veteran and the diversity. If the requisitions is for other locations, then by default, this will not be displayed because there is an Oracle seeded rule written, for this particular thing. But if the customer says, we wanted to display the veteran for even for other countries, then we have to make customizations accordingly. You can just go to Oracle support to get those informations. And then you have tax credit, which is again, it is US based. Okay? And then preferred locations, all those are other blocks. And then once you see like certain blocks, right, once you add it, it is not available in the block library, like for example, diversity, veteran, disability. But certain blocks, right, you will still see it. For example, license and certifications, you still have. Like even if you add this block again, you will still be able to see that in the block library. You can see, and then languages, miscellaneous documents, preferred locations. So all these things, you will still see that because that means system does allow you to create, multiple blocks. So that's the that's the purpose of this particular block. So any doubts or questions, team, on the job application flow?
No worries, nothing for now.
Okay. So Rizwana, what do you feel about the job application flow setups like when comparing to Talio?
Yeah, it looks good.
So, how it used to be in Tally? Is it like will it be this simple in Tally or it's like complex?
No, it is simple only, Harish.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but we can define it for different location as well.
Okay,
Like if we want to have a different application flow for US and different for India, that is the flexibility we have in Talio.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But here we don't have that. We can define only the context. It's based on recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so once we configure all those details, we can just click on save and activate so that this particular flow is now activated. And then you also have the translation editor where you can just give the translations for sections and for blocks. You see the section names, personal information, right? It is all displayed here. And if you wanted to give translations for other sections, you can just choose the section name and then provide your translations. Since these are all seeded sections, you get to see all the translations here. And if you wanted to provide the translations for the blocks, click on the translation editor. You can click on blocks, and then you have to choose the block name, and then you can give the translations here. So here, if I just choose, the languages, yeah, it is also coming here. And if the reason why I explicitly choose language is because in languages, we have created our own custom profile type, right? So that is only the fields, for the profiles alone, we have created a custom profile type. But the block properties, everything remains the same. So this is how we can provide the translations. So now once we created and activated the flow, okay, and if I click on actions, you see I still have an activate button here. This is at the job application flow. See, the job application flow is still in the draft. Only the version is active. So we have to activate the job application flow as well. That's when you can start using it in the front end. What happens is, in real time, this is where we get stuck with. We would be creating, the versions and we'll activate it, but when we're creating the requisition, we would not see the job application flow which we created. The reason is because the version is active, but not the job application flow. So now once it is activated, you can use this particular one. And let's say tomorrow after some, if you wanted to make some changes, you can always click on this actions button. You will see copy to create new version. And then you will see an option V2. Once you give some version name, you can make the changes and then you can just click on save and activate so that the new version is activated and you can see the status of the old version as ended. If you're giving something within future data, then you will see something in same icon with green color, and then the line arrow would be from left to right, and the status would be shown as future. So this is all about the job application flow team.